Hey, welcome to the Office of Undergraduate Research Education series. Today's session is on being human in STEM. This is a virtual event. It's being recorded, so we ask everyone to mute themselves and turn off their camera to have the best experience. But if you have questions, please use the chat feature, or you can unmute when invited by the speaker. And this is the evaluation form. We would love everyone to complete this after the presentation, but we want to remind the SPUR, Europe, and Wilk scholars that you must complete this in order to get credit for attending today. And the mission of the Office of Undergraduate Research is to facilitate and promote undergraduate, student, faculty, collaborative research, and creative works in all disciplines throughout the U campus. And we would like to acknowledge that this land, which is named for the Ute tribe, is the traditional and ancestral homeland of the Shoshone, Paiute, Goshute, and Ute tribes. The Ute recognizes and respects the enduring relationship that exists between many indigenous peoples and their traditional homelands. We respect the sovereign relationship between tribes, states, and the federal government, and we affirm the Ute's commitment to a partnership with Native nations and urban Indian communities through research, education, and community outreach activities. And I'd like to introduce today's speaker is Dr. Claudia Grandi. She's an associate professor and lecturer in physics and astronomy.
Great. Thank you so much, Shelley, for the introduction and the invitation. Welcome, everyone. I hope you're having a good day. I would love to see some of your faces if you feel like turning on your camera at any time. I really hope to get to know you a bit today. I kind of wish this would be also in person, but it's also cool to have it online. So please react anytime. I hope this is a discussion, not like a lecture. I really learn from you anytime. So feel free to, show up, make hearts, use your emojis and interact. So the outline of my talk, which is flexible, I want to give you an introduction about myself and also ask a couple of questions just to see who is in the audience. 67 people. That's awesome. Thank you for being here. I want to tell you a bit about this class, Being Human in STEM, and what students like the most. And mostly how that informs who I am as an educator. And this is all a way to let you know I hope all those ideas that you can take away as students, STEM students, but also students in general. All of us are exposed to STEM in some forms or others. We all have to take some math. We have to deal with STEM in some capacity, or we had in the past. And then I would like just to have some discussion here and there and answer your questions. Thank you also for the questions that were submitted already. Okay, so let me just give you a brief overview of who I am, because you don't know who I am. Maybe I believe I know several of you, but maybe not many of you. So I am originally from Italy. My accent is going to stay with me forever. I'm from Milano. I came to the US to study physics for my PhD. I was at Boston University and I studied theoretical quantum physics. So that's a photo I'm comfortable sharing because my eyes are both open, which is rare. After that, I continued studying and I went to Yale University to do more research. I studied quantum information in qubits, so theoretical physics. And I'm telling you my little story very briefly, just to let you know that things can change as you go through your career and do research and other things. And what happened to me is that as I was doing research, I started developing an interest for education. So I became a teaching postdoc and I learned how people learn, how to teach effectively, innovative teaching, and I got very passionate about it. So that brought me to actually switch from, I would say I was doing 100% research to more and more and more, if this is a dial, more and more teaching. And I would have never guessed that teaching was my thing back then. I never really cared about it. So this is to say, be open to be surprised. You might end up doing something that you didn't know at the beginning, and that's completely okay. I think studying and doing research is about finding your path in life and also finding where your best skills are. So I've been at the U for about 7 years, actually exactly 7 years this Friday. So that's exciting. And I have a lot of fun teaching and also making silly drawings. So those are example of physics ideas. I like to make physics fun. Sometimes people say, oh, physics. Well, physics is fun, and I hope everybody, no matter if they're a physics major or not, you will enjoy it in your physics classes at the U. what do I do at the U? So I teach physics 1 and 2 for science and engineering majors. So those are large classes. We are moving to a new building soon, and our new classroom will have a capacity of 265. So I think I might have 530 students this coming fall, which is exciting. I also co-teach teach this class that I will tell you more about, being human in STEM. And in general, I try to promote teaching excellence in my department, support faculty coming up with ideas. So I'm just very passionate about teaching. Okay, I also try not to talk too much. Sometimes I do my best. So I would like to know who is in the audience. So I have a couple of Zoom poll question for you. Who are you? Because I don't know who is in the audience because I don't see you very much and I haven't met you. So let me pull this up. Poll quizzes. Who is in the audience? I will launch this. So a little question for you, just to know if you are from the U or not. What's your role at the moment? I also hope you're having a good time if you're visiting the U for the summer. I see the statistics are flickering. Looks like the undergrad at the U are competing with undergrad from other institution. Let's see, looks like it's kind of a 50-50 split. Okay, if you need a few more seconds to respond. So let me show the result. Show result. It looks like we are kind of 50-50 undergraduate from the U and not from the U, and a few other graduate student and researcher, faculty, postdocs. Thank you for coming today. So this helps me to know. I also have another question for you, which is, are you in STEM or are you planning to pursue a career in STEM? Or maybe you don't know yet, but that's good to see. So let me launch this other poll. So how much do you care about, considering STEM or not STEM? Looks like I'm getting a lot of responses. Most of you say yes. We have some no, and some people that are not sure. So thank you for responding to the question. Okay, so I also saw that many of you are doing cool research in STEM and also other things. So thank you for coming. I just want to also make sure there is no requirement to be in STEM to participate to this talk. And I hope you'll take away ideas even if you're not a STEM major. So let me show you the result. This is how you are sort of splitting up today. Okay. Can you just give me a thumbs up in the chat if you're able to see the result when I share? Because Zoom keeps evolving, so maybe the Zoom polls are not visible. So if somebody can give me a thumbs up or say yes in the chat, it's been very silent. I'm sure you have thoughts to share, so feel free to chat. Okay, thank you. And then, oh, by the way, my cat, my meow meow sometimes, it's the cat. Okay, and then one more question. How are you today? I know you're here. I want to see how much you are present. How is life? I'm sure you have a lot going on with the summer and all you want to achieve. So I just want to know, how much is your stress level? How are you doing? I hope you are enjoying the summer. But it's also good to hear, we are before that's the beginning of the month. Maybe you're thinking about all the things that need to happen in the next few weeks. For me, summer is a time where things slow down a lot because I don't teach in the summer. I try to prepare for everything that happens yet. So I'm definitely much more relaxed than what I could be during a regular semester. Okay, looks like we are, let me share the result. I'll close this poll. We are kind of split in all possible options, but slightly better to just good overall, which is good. I wonder how, if I would ask the same question a different time of the year, how would that evolve? Okay, now since you haven't said anything yet, I'm a big fan of icebreaker. So I would like you to share in the chat, anybody wants to, what is your favorite things to eat or drink when it's hot? I know we're going through a hot summer, so if you just want to say hello in the chat and what is your favorite thing to eat or drink when it's hot? Lemonade, popsicles. Hey Eva, popsicles. I started making my own popsicles last summer, and I definitely am getting kind of like this chemistry experiment to try different things and make my own popsicles. And then I tried them. It's like, next time I'll add more of that. So I'm definitely making my own popsicles. Thank you for sharing all this idea. Matcha, watermelon. All right. Thank you for sharing silly things. I hope you're staying cool this summer. Today's kind of a nice day. Looks like we have some clouds. All right. So please feel free to chat more as I go through. So I want to start with a quote. This is something that captures the way I teach and capture what I learned from the class and also capture what I think is important to acknowledge when we are in STEM, as in any discipline. This is a quote from Carl Rogers. He's a famous psychologist and educator, American psychologist and educator. I'm going to highlight a few things. He said in 1983, significant learning combines the logical and the intuitive, the intellect and the feelings, the concepts and the experience, the idea and the meaning. When we learn in that way, we are whole. And this is something I want to remind myself all the time, in the sense that we teach, we learn our full body and our full mind and our full self. It's not that we separate our brain and we learn that alone. We are a person. And so acknowledging all those things is crucial to have an important and meaningful learning experience. So starting with that, I want to talk about this class. So let me just tell you a bit about the class. The Being Human in STEM class is a course that started 10 years ago. 10 years ago in fall 2015, there were a lot of tension in many campuses that caused presidents to resign, protest, library to be occupied, and students basically voicing their concern, especially with what regards racial injustice and discrimination. This brought the need for dialogue between students and administration to obtain different things in order for students to be heard. This also happened at the University of Utah and as many maybe of the institution where you're all coming from. Specifically, this brought attention that it needs to be a dialogue between students and faculty, because students are who we care about, but oftentimes we don't have situation to talk to about what students think. So in chemistry, Sheila Jaswal, she's a professor at Amherst College, created the idea that is called Being Human in STEM. The idea was, as captured by this, the logo and everything comes from her. She's wonderful, and that's why this class exists and continue to exist across different institutions. The idea is to create a community of faculty and students and staff that they work together to improve the STEM community and develop also interventions to improve the environment, the climate in STEM. So let me say that this is a class that has since then developed. So this is actually an image that is not so updated, but this is kind of to see the network of how, starting from Amherst College, I was a postdoc at Yale University back then, where I started co-teaching this class. And then I brought it to the U when I started 7 years ago. The class started in 2020, and since then has been taught every spring. So if you are a student at the U, you could take it next spring. If you're not a student at the U, you might check out if this is taught at one of your institution. There is a lot of information I can share about this. Let me just say what's the format of the class. The class is divided in two parts, 2 days a week. And one day we focus on discussion of readings together, and the other day we will develop projects, and I'll tell you more about all of that. The class is important because it fulfills a bunch of things that are helpful when you are a student. So it fulfills the university DV, diversity requirement. If you are in the honors college, it's also satisfied as elective. It also has the community engaged learning designation. There is no prerequisite, and it's aimed at STEM students, but if you are a non-STEM student who is really interested in this topic, you can also be part of the class. The class is capped at 20, and so there is like a permission code way to enroll. So reach out to me in the fall if you're interested and if you're at the U. This is just to advertise the class briefly. Otherwise, now I'll move on to something that is relevant for everybody. So what are the goals of this class? There are 4 main goals. First of all, think about a typical classroom, right? There is like a professor and a lecture hall. This is a very different class. It's not like that at all. Usually we sit around the table, many tables, or we have tables. The idea is that the instructors, first of all, I never teach it alone. There are other people. The instructors sit with the students. We collaborate, we communicate, we have discussions. So doesn't look like a lecture. So it's really a community of people who discuss together themes, criticize, analyze, express a different point of view to come to a greater understanding of the STEM fields. And together with this number 1 and 2 of goals, we also design projects that aim to improve the climate at the university. And those are presented at a symposium that happens usually in April. The last one was in this past April, the 25th, where all the projects are presented. And you can participate in this in the future. Maybe some of you were there last April. I would love to know if you were there this last April. Please let me know in the chat. And there are summaries of the project that I will be able to share with you. But the way I want to tell you about the class is mostly to tell you what students like about this class, because this class is pretty unique in the way it's formed. And that's where I think this could be interesting for you as a student in STEM or as a student in general. So what I learned from this class is that students really miss a community in STEM or a community in general. They love making friends. This class is a lot about connection with students in different majors, and so they like making friends with students that are in a different STEM majors. They also get to meet me and other faculty in a much more personal and approachable way. And so they actually realize, first of all, the faculty are humans, that we care about students maybe more than what they thought, and that we are here to support you. And then in general, they feel validated and supported. Second, the most important thing is that we do readings that you often don't do otherwise in other classes. And so learning from readings and data on issues that impact STEM is one of the main takeaway from the students, especially learning from their peers. And so learning from perspectives that are different than their own and personal stories. And this also comes with what students often say is also reflecting on their own biases, implicit or explicit. So we talk about implicit bias as something that we all have, but recognize it and be aware of it is also something that for students comes as a new understanding of their own experiences. So let me give you some examples because I haven't really told you what this class is about. Okay, so this is a kind of a broad list of the topics discussed in the class. So I want to give you a moment to read through all of them. Of course, this is just a brief title, and it will take me an entire semester to sort of address all of those things, right? But so those are the things that we discuss, and some of these topics actually have been suggested by students that have evolved over time based on the interests of students. For instance, STEM and faith and religion is a topic that before I moved to the University of Utah, it wasn't as important. And so it's been very interesting to teach this class in the context of the LDS community at the U and recognizing different backgrounds of students that come in the class and at the U and different perspectives. So that's been a very enlightening and interesting discussion that we have every semester. Mental health is actually something that we didn't used to talk about initially, but it really became something that students really want to talk about. So we do talk about that. And then honestly, the list would be longer. We never have time to talk about everything we want. There are other things like health issues health disparities in the medical fields and things like that we get to talk about sometimes, but not every time. So it's really based on the student interest. Now, if you're interested to learn more, and I just want to give you an example of some of the things we read and discuss in the class that are actually available for you for free. So I know that summer is sometimes a time where you might have time to read. I hope so. So if you're interested, I created a little QR code, a page that I will also share in the chat. One second here, where if you like to read those things at your own pleasure, you can scan the QR code or also look at this document where the incredible thing is that the Marriott Library gives us access to this documentary, Picture a Scientist, a great documentary that talks about disparities in lab spaces and sexism toward women in STEM, scientists. But there are also free books, and I just gathered a few other things in that page that are usually readings that are accessible and they're usually very meaningful to the students. Of course, those are just a few bits of the class. So those are just some example. Mostly what students like and what I realize that is important in this class is to learning that science is human-made, which, I mean, clearly we know that, right? But we tend to think that science is objective, that everything is correct or not correct, yes or no. But there are also humans in the community. And so the entire STEM enterprise has also biases and limitations. And there is nothing wrong with that other than being aware of it. Because again, as humans, we have all our experience and we bring different insights. So for instance, students are very intrigued and surprised to learn about implicit bias that exist, especially also in the selections of published paper, who gets to get a position, who gets to get a job, and there are different studies on that. We talked about things that impact everybody experience in STEM. Have you heard about stereotype threat and imposter syndrome? Is that something maybe you heard before? Maybe if you did hear, you can react with a thumbs up or not, or any sort of reaction you want to do if you have heard of stereotype threat and imposter syndrome before. Some of you have heard of self-doubt or imposter syndrome. Have you or not? Somebody says yes. Thank you for the thumbs up. If you haven't heard of it, I did add a couple of links to the page that I shared. It would take me a little longer to talk about it, but maybe we can spend some time if you have in the Q&A. But that's basically how there are psychological aspects of the way we belong in a place that might be dictated by things beyond our control and that have nothing to do with our ability to succeed or do science and STEM. So those are some example. Let me just give you a clear example. We pay attention to words. So let me just show you a few things. Have you ever heard of things like that in your STEM classes? Maybe share in the chat. Have you seen? Have you heard? Have you heard any professors saying that or anybody around you in a STEM class sometimes? Do these sound familiar or not? When the professor goes over something, they say, oh, and the rest is algebra. Or the typical thing, you have someone who starts talking in a large classroom and says, oh, I project my voice. You can all hear me, right? I don't need the microphone. And who's going to be the person who's going to shyly like raise their hand and say, hey, no, actually, I can't hear you. Because actually, they can't even hear what they said. So accessibility and making implicit assumption that everything is as you assume, I don't know. I don't know if you can hear me right now. I suppose so because you're reacting. I cannot make assumption without having some confirmation on the other side. Um, Thank you for sharing, Indy, as you already know, which makes it embarrassing and hard to speak up when you're not familiar with that concept. Yes, absolutely. As you all already should know, or you should know, if you are taking a class, it means you don't know that stuff, and so you should not know. Yes, it's true, they're a prerequisite, and professors get very attached to the fact like, oh, it's a prerequisite to the class. Yes, a prerequisite, it doesn't mean you know how to apply it necessarily yet to that specific field. So understanding who is your audience and speak to them in a way that makes them feel like they can participate is very important. So those are small things that this in this article they've been called mathematical microaggression by Francis Edward Sue. It's a very quick article. If you'd like to read it, it is in the page I shared before. It talks about how those small things make us feel, as somebody sharing in the chat, make us feel like, oh, maybe I'm not in the right place, or maybe I'm supposed to be more prepared, or maybe the professor doesn't really want to listen to me. With this, I try to capture, wait 1 second, when people would say, questions. Okay, let's move on. There was not really much time. Usually you should wait like 6 or 7 seconds before moving on, or you should also frame it more like pause for a moment and let me know what I can explain again. Maybe there's something that I can clarify. So take the time. It takes time to come up with questions. And if you really want to hear a student's question, you need to give them time to come up with questions. So I want to ask you, what else comes to mind? Are the other forms of comments like this in some ways they make you feel like maybe you are not in the right place, you don't belong in the classroom, or you need to be more prepared? Are there any other examples of things you have heard? Or maybe that you even said yourself and now you realize you should have not said them, or other thoughts? What are other things? Feel free to speak up or type things in the chat. What are other things you've heard that maybe irritated you for a tiny bit and then you moved on? It's like, oh, whatever. And this is to say, those are not things that are said intentionally to be, they're not said intentionally. Oftentimes we do say those things. I've said some of those things in the past. I try not to say them, and I find other things that I should say differently, right? So it's a continuous evolution, but it's important to know the impact that might have on someone who is just entering the STEM fields. Obviously, yes, I feel like trivial, obvious, all of those things. Thank you for sharing. What are other examples? We are short on time. I'll post a solution to examples later. Yes, yes, I guess I'm afraid I've said that several times. Thank you for sharing. My calculus teacher told me it's all self-explanatory. Oh, great. I didn't know self-explanatory. That even goes beyond the trivial. That's very easy to understand. Thank you. Those are all good examples. It's not worth it get so deep in the details. Oh, I like that. Yeah. So there is, you know, this is to say a professor does their best, but they are not necessarily helping you bridge with the things you don't know yet. And so it's important to have resources available to you. Okay, thank you for sharing. So let me a lot of things. Let me move on with the things the student likes. So talking about microaggression as an example, those are examples specifically to, I would say, STEM environments. We talked about microaggression broadly in many other domains as part of this class, and students appreciate how they can recognize microaggression when they hear them, or when maybe themselves they realize they said things themselves in the past. So there's a lot of kind of like bringing some self-awareness of things you've never thought about. Finally, what I would say, most of the students find their own voice. You know, sometimes you start college, you don't know yet who you're going to be, what is important to you, and if people even are going to listen to you. So there is a natural process in this class of student finding their voice, the language to speak up for things that they care about. And so being an advocate in general for themselves and for their peers. So let me tell you especially how that come about. That comes through the projects. So let me give you some example. The class has been going on for 6 years, so there are many projects. So here I'm just capturing some of the projects that were covered in the past years, and then I show you the one from this past spring. But the idea is that those are group projects that students pick. So like there is an idea, they identify some issues in STEM that they want to work on, and then that becomes a project that evolved, and that can become a collaboration with offices on campus, a gathering of data, and that all becomes a proposal, a presentation that is aimed to bring attention to things that are missing or that they could improve. So something that has been really important, for instance, has been financial aid. I'm aware many of you might be working several jobs now or during the semester. Paying for college is hard. And so acknowledging the financial hurdles and need for resources that students have while being in college is important. And so there are things that can be improved in terms of resources as well as connecting students with scholarships. So that's something actually that came up 2 years. In general, issue surrounding queer students and also bathrooms has been very popular in the past couple of years, given also different changes that happen at the U. And so bringing affirmation to different identities, as well as concrete concrete differences. So in this group, students went around to measure how many square footage of female bathroom and male bathroom and on gender neutral bathroom there were in every buildings to map how long it takes for a typical STEM students to leave their labs to go to the bathroom and come back, and find out that in general it takes longer to a female student to find a bathroom and then come back to class. So the project vary a lot. These are the project actually from this past springs that focus a lot on student success. So maybe if you were at the symposium, you heard of some of them. I want to show the page. I'll share the page with the where you can learn more about those projects. The QR code that you can see, that you can scan here, are to each specific proposal, flyers, and other things that those groups have done. So this is, every year brings different attention to different things. So this year there was an interest on recycling. So how to do better recycling to improve that on campus by students' actions. There was a project, this one up here, see something, know how to say something. So we are surrounded by all this like Title IX training, misconduct, and so forth. But when actually something happens, do we know what to do? There's a big gap between resources and how to advocate for yourself. So this is actually a project that is ongoing. Students they want to print out both digitally, both concretely and digitally, a resource for students to know who to reach out and how when they need to report something. This other group talked about succeeding in STEM. So they created a STEM fair to help students connect with resources. This is, usually when you start at a university, you have maybe a lot of information that is given to you when you're in your first year, when you start, and then, you forget it because you move on and you forget about what is accessible to you. So it's about connecting students with resources when they actually might need them, so they can find more support. And finally, this one is about accessibility, and I'm a big advocate for this. This is accessibility and access for students with disability is something I'm a big advocate. I'm a faculty advisor for a student organization called the STEM, Disability and Access in STEM. If you're at the U, you can join the club. So this project aimed at, again, bridging, creating more support around obtaining accommodation, removing the stigma about it, obtaining accommodation, and also educating other faculty on how to be better ally for students with disabilities. Okay, I said a lot of things. Are there questions on this project? So like, well, as you see those titles, clearly those are projects that, the student presented this with presentation, so it will take me much longer to give you more details, but I want to see what capture your attentions and which questions you have about any of those, either the one from this past spring or the one, this is kind of an overview of the previous one. I understand the title are not, they're just titles, so they might not say the entire story. So what comes to mind? What would you like to know more about? Maybe pick one or two, and I'm happy to share you more details about these projects and any questions about the projects in general. Could you talk more about accessibility efforts and what that looks like in the real world? Absolutely, in the real world. With me, real world, indeed, do you mean outside the university, or you're thinking about a specific example in the classroom? Yes. Okay, sure. I think I have other slides on that. So concrete examples are what we've been suggesting for this year. Let's see if I have more information here. Okay, so this, by the way, is the student organization. Actually, those I think are not updated yet. Sorry, but that's I can share the link later on the resource document. Is on Campus Connect. So that's also so concrete impact. We created a student organization that has events for students with disabilities and anybody. In addition, what we are trying to propose is the idea of universal design. So the idea of universal design is that the world, as well as learning, should not be made with barriers that you need to overcome, but the world could be set up as a priori without those barriers. So a concrete example you might heard is the curb cut effect. So curb cuts were created for people in wheelchairs, but as a byproduct, a curb cut benefits everybody, right? If you have a stroller, if you are on a bicycle, if you need to carry something that is on a wheel up and down a sidewalk, right? So this is an example of something that you do intentionally for a group of people, in this case with a disability, but actually ends up benefiting everybody. So you can expand this idea of universal design for learning, which is the idea of teaching, or also you can think of creating educational spaces, doing research such that whatever barriers are there are removed a priori. This could be about, how to meet, how much time to give for a project, how to be flexible with deadlines, how to provide different ways to access content, right? It could be visual, it could be audio, it could be through recording. This idea that by providing more resources, everybody can pick what speaks best to them and succeed. So this is a concrete example of things that can be implemented when you teach. The proposal of students this past year was actually about proposing a liaison network. So faculty network. So the suggestion, which is partially implemented, I might be one of this person this coming academic year. So having a faculty member in every department that acts as a liaison between the students and the Center for Disability and Access, or between the faculty and the Center for Disability and Access. So in general, making disabilities more better implemented and make the process smoother. And there was another question about mentorship project. And by the way, I'm happy to talk about any of those things after the talk, and so you can reach out to me anytime. About mentoring. So the mentoring project actually was a proposal that is being partially the peer mentoring implemented. So several departments have their own way to try to do peer mentorship. So for instance, in physics and astronomy, we have a class that is connected with, we call it the PANDA network, physics and astronomy, where students who are more seniors act as mentors for incoming students in physics and astronomy. So there is kind of it's not peer-to-peer, but it's like two peers to a larger group. So they have mentoring activities. I know that biology and chemistry had their own other initiatives. So this idea was to make sure that every department will develop their own way to promote peer-to-peer mentorship. This was a few years ago, and so it depends where every department is. And I'm happy to let you know, to talk more about what I know about each department, but it's kind of an ongoing project that depends on the situation of each department. Thank you for the questions. I hope that gives you a bit of some ideas. I'm going to move on with some other ideas, but again, I'm happy to talk more about any of this moving forward. This was the pause for questions. Are there other questions about anything about the class that I mentioned so far? What I'm going to tell you next is more about which ideas of the class inform me and in some sense can inform you as a STEM student or as a student in general. But I want to see if there are questions on other things I said so far. All right, I'll carry on. Feel free to interrupt if your questions come to mind. Okay, what are aspects of this class and in general being involved in this class that inform my teaching and in general my approach to education? As I started with that quote about the importance of who you are as a person. In general, as STEM students, we're often told whoever you are, it doesn't matter. Yourself can wait at the door and you're here just to, do the math, do the physics, do the science. Well, as I said, we learn as people. We are all together. We cannot separate ourselves. And so the importance of bringing and welcoming to the classroom who students are, whoever they are, whatever is their background, whatever is what they care about, their beliefs, their interest. This is both in acknowledging and celebrating students, making sure that they are welcome for who they are in the classroom. This is also in the curriculum. I try to include more in my curriculum the history of scientists, try to represent how things were found. So oftentimes, for instance, we give a name to a theorem, right? We talk about Newton's or we talk about those famous names. But who actually has done the work was for sure those people, but others don't get recognized. And so I try to make clear that science is, what I know as a physicist is based on my education. I grew up in Italy. I studied in the US. My education has been only in these two places. So it's been shaped by those universities. There are other things that I don't know because that's how I was trained, right? So just to be aware that there is much more I'm trying to learn, but so what I present is my sort of my perspective. Um, and it's not the entire perspective. So pushing students to look for more answers and more interpretation and be clear about the limitations. In general, as I said, also being clear about flaws and biases that are in the process. Students are very excited to know about that, to see that for themselves and be advocate and also just be more aware of, again, the flaws of a system. There is in everything, right? So just the awareness. In general, being in North America and for me also in Europe, science tends to be very Eurocentric. So we celebrate the work of scientists from Europe, and we have what we call global North perception. There is a lot of science and research that's done actually in other countries that are not at the center of attention when we talk about science, and so it's important to bring those to attention and see that the picture is much broader than what we're often told. Building community. This is another important thing. As I said, we have cookie breaks. I'm a big fan of bringing cookies. If this would be an in-person talk, I would have brought cookies, but unfortunately it's not. So I hope you are enjoying your lunch or cookies or popsicle, whatever it is. But how important it is to connect people. And a best recommendation for you as a student, do not isolate yourself. We are the university, we are students to connect with other people. That doesn't mean you need to be an extrovert, but talking to other people, making connection is crucial for finding your passion, enjoying your classes, finding what you really like by exchanging your thoughts and having a deeper understanding of the topics. So I think what I learned from this class is how important it is to create community. And I bring this to my other classes. I often have study halls where students are encouraged to come, make friends, bring cookies, as I said, and creating those connections. So this is sort of answering a broader questions. I think some of you submitted questions about how can we make STEM a more inclusive places for all people, creating community and kind of changing the narrative of what STEM looks like. It's an important first step to welcome everybody. Another important thing is acknowledging students are humans. I'm sure you know, that's why I asked you the question about how stressed you are today. You have a lot going on. And sometimes professors in one class just feel like you're only taking their own class. They forget that you're actually taking so many other classes, that you're doing research and you're working and you have so many other things going on in your life, right? Other than, of course, becoming an adult and figuring out other things. So those are all important things that interfere with who you are and how your semester is going. So this is to say it's important to acknowledge that mental health is important and providing resources, as I mentioned before, so that students can really grow and get to the end at their own in whatever way makes sense to them. So let me just say one thing that I like to say to my students, do never change a career path based on one class. You might have a class that was terrible for a different reason. You really had a bad semester, so you didn't get the grade you wanted, or the professor wasn't really good for you. And then you decide that, okay, maybe that was your biology class or chemistry class that you wanted to be a biology or chemistry major. Then after the class, you're like, oh no, the class was terrible. It means I have to change my major. Please never do that. It's very high stake to make a decision based on one class. Might go wrong. Things can happen. One semester is a small part of your life. Don't make big decisions based on one experience. Things can go wrong for many different reasons, and that doesn't mean that you cannot succeed in that field or in that class moving forward. In general, I think um, something that I try to work on is giving clear and explicit expectations. So I think there is a lot of implicit information that comes when you say STEM, um, especially if you're a pre-med. I don't know how many of you are a pre-med. Maybe thumbs up if you want to go to medical school or if you are in some pre-health field. Feel free to show your favorite emoji if you are a pre-health person. Medical school is very, very competitive. So students enter their STEM degrees with this idea of competing with each other, getting the best grades. And this is kind of in the nature of the field, but it goes against what science is, which is collaboration, community. And in classes, you do want to collaborate with your classroom. So there is often some implicit assumption of what are the hidden rules of STEM. And those rules are implicitly assumed, but they might not be the case. I want my student to collaborate with each other. I want my student to have fun. I want my student to ask questions. Similarly, in your research labs, right? You want to ask the same question. Is that okay to be confused? Is that okay to not know absolutely what to do here? Is that okay to make mistakes? And so as we make those expectations clear, we can help students have acknowledge they're humans and succeed. Guarantee accessibility. This goes along what I mentioned before about the idea of universal design for learning and making content accessible in different ways to everyone. Finally, I think the other idea that I learned so much. So this class, as I said, is very student led. So student help me choose the topics, lead the projects, and so in some sense, what I like to say is kind of co-design with the students. And I think this is very, very important in everything that we do in STEM at the university in general, to always include students in the process. Because my classes and what I know and what I will keep learning is comes from the feedback I get from students every year, from my teaching assistant and my learning assistant, who are always awesome, and from people who tell me, hey, this was really bad, doing it a different way, right? We always improve. And so if the students are not part of the conversation, that's a problem. And I think this is important both in teaching as well as in research. Always include students. That's also true, for instance, in committees. In my department, more and more, we include students on committees that make decisions about, for instance, the graduate program, the undergraduate program, and that's important because the students who have more to say about it are part of the conversation. All right, so those are 5 ideas that I'm just summarizing here, and I just want to hear what you think. Those are just some common things I identify that are not necessarily any like big theories or anything set in stones. It's sort of what I'm evolving with as I've been teaching this class. And so I want to ask you just to reflect and share what of those 5 things you think is most needed in STEM, or you can also refer to that in your classes in general. And I have another poll to share with you. So if you look at these 5 ideas, you can select 1 or 2 or more or none. If you don't think any is needed, you can not answer. But if you have other ideas, I will welcome them in the chat. And just to get an idea of what you feel like is most needed. And I hope what I meant is clear. If it's not clear, please ask and I can clarify. So I encourage you to use the poll to select which of A, B, C, D, E, R you think is most needed in the STEM fields. And this is not just classes, could be your research lab. You can reflect on your research experience this summer or a previous research experience or just experiences you had at conferences or in general as you are approaching the STEM fields or you're maybe close to graduating. I don't know where you all are at. If anybody, in the meantime, I'll leave a few more seconds to close on this question. We have a few people who haven't voted yet, so I welcome everybody. It would be nice to see where where we all land. If you also feel very strongly about one of those and you would like to type in the chat any reason why you chose that specific A, B, C, or D or E, and why, or just sharing some insights on how this relates to your own understanding of things. All right, looks like students are humans is the first one. I'm not surprised. You all want to be acknowledged as human being, not a machine. I think I hear some students in my class saying like, we're not robots, we are people. Yes. And then there's all this idea like, oh, you should just do some self-care. And then you tell me where I don't have the time. I'm asked to work like a machine. So how do we shift that dynamic? And how do we welcome you in the classroom as humans? Second one is building community. Okay, I hope the insights are surprising or not. What do you think? I would like to see any comments in the chat about how those ideas might be resonating with you, or maybe no, maybe you are really disagreeing with any of those. Okay, we have a comment about choosing intersectionality in multiple identities, that physics, the population of physicists in America should reflect better diversity of our population. That's a good point. That's a good thing to look at. Like something you do looking at statistics is like who is at the university, who gets to do science? Is that representative of our population? So and then you can narrow it down to specific fields. We have another comment. I think it's important to acknowledge that science is done by humans. We're all humans. We all make mistakes, and science and statistics are not infallible. Yes, absolutely. And I think sometimes what is very important about the class is that data is absolutely important. We look at statistics and data, but personal stories and point of view are so impactful, and you will remember those forever, right? Somebody tells you, I had this experience and that's how I felt. You will remember that, and in conjunction with the data, that will bring you to understand things that you have never otherwise experienced yourself. I hope, given that building community, that after this talk you go all out for lunch or something, or that you have time to get together our summer students, like 72 of you. I hope you get to hang out on campus as the summer goes on. Okay, I think this gives me a good moment to, I guess, wrap up and see which other questions you have. I gave you just a little bit of an overview of, I guess, who I am, what I try to do in this class. I could talk about this class forever. And I've talked a lot. I haven't heard too much from you. So I want to answer your questions. There were some questions submitted ahead of time. Thank you, that I'm happy to address. But when I first leave time for other questions that you might have here in the moment, following up on anything that I presented so far. Okay, I'll give you time to produce some questions, and I'll start addressing the one that were submitted. So I ordered them a bit by field, and I thank you for the question in the chat. I will address it in a second. I just want to say that 1 and 2 kind of, I hope I did address this to some extent. To me, how do we welcome groups that are historically excluded from STEM? It is, as I mentioned, is about shifting the narrative of what STEM looks like and who gets to do STEM. And this starts from like what a classroom looks like. It's not like a professor writing long derivation at the board, but it is a communal space where there is discussion, where students talk and share and their friends. So shifting what STEM looks like, and all of those ideas I shared before, to me, are towards that. They don't solve everything, but they start shifting that narrative. And as I said, building community is part of it. And how to build community is part of the idea of co-design. You build community by learning what other people, what the needs of everybody, including people in the conversation, creating those opportunities for communities, making bridges, listening to perspective different than your own, showing up to events and talk to other people. So those are just some ideas that I think I at least surfaced a bit. Let me see the question that we have in the chat. This class is undoubtedly interesting and fun to take. Yes, I hope you'll take it if you are at the U next year. On the other hand, we also consider taking other upper-level electives or graduate-level course, or doing research closely with faculty or internships, aiming to be relevant and stand out significantly when applying for graduate school, when all are aware that GPA, relevant courses, and relevant research experience are the most important considerations for graduate school, which motivates us to focus our time investment on how does take this class actually significantly stands out as a graduate applicant. Okay, good question. So let me just share again. This is, I guess, if you're a student at the U, there are concrete reasons why this class actually benefits your curriculum, which are those requirements. So if you haven't satisfied this prereq, that helps with that. If you're honor students, that also helps with that. So there is a concrete benefit. I would say the other thing is like if what I told you now interest you, then you should take it. Like if those things just spark your interest, go for it. If they didn't, that's okay. In which way actually they help you to prepare for graduate school? So let me go back to what I said. There is an understanding, I think understanding the limitations and how the STEM fields work is definitely something that prepares you to be in STEM. So to give you an example, in this class, you get to know the faculty perspective much more. For instance, what it's like to be a faculty member, how faculty member and administration are not the same thing, how we apply for jobs. So there is a bit of like learning the behind the scenes of what's not being a student in the university, how things work, which definitely helps bridge connection in like what if you want to be a researcher, a professor one day. So if you're interested in graduate school, that will give you more of a bigger picture of what is like to be a professor at the university. So there is that part. You get to see things that are again, there are things that are more related to like do work at the university again as a professor that are more about advocating for students, advocating for changes. And so all these reading that we do and with data that we do help you identify the issues so that you can also find your own voice as you apply for graduate school, right? Your passion for science might be connected to some changes that you want to be in STEM. So this class might help you see what other things you might be interested in that go along with your passion for physics, let's say, or chemistry or whatever. We are humans, and so we also want our work to be relevant for an impact on society. And I think this class can help you develop those ideas. And especially it makes you more of a well-rounded scientist because you're going to more know things that you didn't know before. At another level, I think many students have a personal growth in this class. They reflect on who they are and they find, as I said before, they find their own voices. I think I said it in this other bullet point here. Finding your own voice sometimes means that you shift your interest. So I've seen people after this class slightly maybe narrow down, then maybe they realize they're more interested in this part of their field rather than that, or they've been postponing something. So it also helps either confirm your interest for what you're doing or maybe shifting a little bit because you're going to get exposed to other majors and other point of view. And so I think it can consolidate your desire to go to graduate school, for instance, and make you even more passionate or shift a bit your interest. So I hope I addressed your question. And I completely understand that you have a lot of priorities. So this is a class that you might take, when is the best time for you. Thank you for the question. Other questions, please, in the chat. Otherwise, I can go back to the questions that were submitted. All right, let me maybe address this question. Have I ever dealt with imposter syndrome or just feel like I didn't belong in STEM? So imposter syndrome, as I said, I put some resources here. This is the page again, if you want to scan it again. If I felt imposter syndrome, so I would say so imposter syndrome is feel like that you kind of got lucky to be in a place you don't really deserve it. You are not smart enough, I guess, to be, for instance, in physics, and you doubt your ability to succeed there because you don't attribute your success to yourself, but other to external circumstances that, made you lucky. So I definitely have moments where I question my belonging in physics. This was in graduate school and also during my postdocs. I wonder if I was smart enough, productive enough, and all of those things. And I have to say, those were actually productive moments. I would say that's normal. It's normal to have doubts. Those ended up being productive moments because doubts make you explore other things. And so usually I went into these loopholes. Oh, should I do something else? Should I change research field or should I change everything completely? And those loopholes actually came back to like, no, I should keep doing what I'm doing, but now I have a renovated interest. So sometimes those doubts are actually worth pursuing. Actually, I absolutely recommend that. Other times, those doubts have actually, as I mentioned before, helped me explore different things that brought me to focus on education and teaching, which is something that I found out to be more important for my career. In general, I always felt like I belonged in STEM. I had wonderful mentors and supporters, and I guess I know we are up with time, so maybe I should wrap up here. But I'm happy to stick around if people have more questions. I'm aware, right, Shelley, that I need to stick to the timeline here. So let me show again. I'm happy to discuss to any more of you. This is my email, and this is the I can put in the chat again the information about the resources if you want to do the readings in the summer or other things. And I want to thank all of you for your time. I will share the information about the event evaluation that Shelley mentioned before. And thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Claudia. We really enjoyed this. I just put the link, the evaluation form, in the chat. So please remember the Spur Europe and Wilk scholars must complete this to receive credit today. And then the last slide is just how we, OUR, we're in the SIL Center, which is just across the parking lot from the Union. And we're at our.utah.edu, and you can email us our@utah.edu. And thank you again, Claudia. This was very interesting.
Thank you, everybody. Please be in touch. Feel free to reach out anytime. And I hope you have an awesome summer. Make the best of your time at the U.